Most modern corporations receive their wealth from a transfer from a large cascade scenario, stolen property and non-homesteaded. I part with Rothbard mainly, where he states that it's better to receive an exchange of stolen property. Say the state steals property from somebody and it ends up in the hands with a third party, then it's better than being in the hands of the original thief. That's asinine. First off, the only way to redistribute is to justly redistribute, and since no current property you can trace back to the original owners who homesteaded it, it requires seizurism, and property must be based upon possession. This is an unfortunate fact. All current property titles are officially void under anarcho-capitalism if you want to remain consistent. In this sense, I advocate agora-syndicalism, where you would have a joint cooperation of large syndicates seizing control over hierarchical factories, which unfortunately, and when I'm defining factory in this sense as any industry which has a mode of production. Unfortunately, as a pragmatist, I cannot sacrifice property. This confuses the hell out of you, it's quite simple. Property, if it's not kept in a consistent manner, if it's not adhered to, where you have the whole praxeological theory of property and use, if you cannot adhere to that homesteading principle, because all current property is a result of stolen property, you effectively null void. Using that definition, all current property that was granted by the state, say a company like Cargill or Lockheed Martin, which does state contracts and builds state weapons, they're legitimate, because even though they haven't engaged in violence themselves, and they were granted money by the state, they didn't steal it themselves with the force of their own arms. Using that definition, modern public schools have an official right to operate. Courthouses and police would be privatized using this system if you had to adhere to stating that if you didn't steal it yourself and you didn't hire somebody else to steal it and it was just given to you, or you voluntarily quote-unquote traded for it, that it becomes your valid property. That's a bunch of crap. That's nonsense. Walmart is illegitimate. Almost every corporation in existence is illegitimate because their property was granted or is a result of stolen property, directly or indirectly. You cannot have a consistent capitalist society if your property is based on a lie. It doesn't work that way. It sucks, but it doesn't work that way. So you have to have a polycentric strategy for redistributing the property, and it has to be based upon the current possessive use owners who are homesteading it right now by putting activity in it. This means that if you work at a furniture store and you pull the furniture out of a truck and sell it, and you apply your labor to that furniture store, it's your furniture store. Everybody in there has to get together and decide, okay, how do we want to run this company? Because the current quote-unquote owners and shareholders don't own shit. It's an unfortunate fact. If they received subsidies and grants by the government, because it's a direct result of stolen goods. And if you don't hold that, or you believe that that is inefficient means and you should just let the quote-unquote market redistribute goods from government qualified property titles, then Lockheed Martin, Halliburton, even some factions of Blackwater and ExxonMobil, they all have a right to exist. They all have a right to exist and retain their current shares. Private government companies that work for the government but don't actually engage in force, they have a right to exist in homes of their property, their quote-unquote property. Their titles are legitimate. If you do go by that, what I like to refer to as the negative property valuation, where if you're not engaging in direct theft yourself, but you're receiving stolen goods and you don't have a right to redistribute those goods, then using that definition, Microsoft, all these intellectual property gained corporations have a right to retain their property, even though they retain their property by the force of the state. And that's illegitimate, which means almost every corporation currently in existence is illegitimate. Why? Because it's an incorporation. It's corporate personhood. That's another reason. This just goes on and on and on. The simple fact is, outside of people's individual houses and small businesses, most property is illegitimately owned under the form of title. There's no way getting around it. I advocate solid, strong property rights, absolutely. But you don't get them from theft.